such a pleasure to be here with you, JC Almanza. You have an incredible story. You are a fitness coach, a mentor, a Christian, motivational speaker, an author, but your life wasn't always so great. You had to overcome some real tough adversity. So they're always my favorite kind of stories, where it doesn't start off easy, but it ends well.
Yeah, it didn't start off easy at all.
Well, yeah. JC, can we start with your youth? And I'm in the South Side of Chicago. Like what it was like, and then because so much of our life is from those formative years, right? In our youth.
I mean, my parents had me at a really young age. My parents came over from Mexico at like 14 and had me at 16. So kids having kids, and yeah. My dad ended up falling in love with the drugs, the women, and just the lifestyle in Chicago. And he left my mom to fend for herself. And at the time, it was three of us, me and my two sisters. My mom had to make a decision to go live with her brother. And her brother was the one that ended up molesting us and doing a lot of bad stuff, especially to me. It was long years of torture, man. He used to drown me in the bathtub, made me jump into pool so I could start drowning, and he would hit me a lot. It was a lot of torture, a lot of hours locked in closets. Obviously something was wrong with him. But by the time I was 9 years old, I was completely disconnected. I guess you could say I was looking to give people the pain that was given to me.
Yes.
At 9 years old, I became every gang member's best friend, especially if they were older guys. I became very, very good at violence, you could say. And it's how I guess you could say it's how I survived. It's how I fed that demon that was inside of me. And I started picking up more bad habits as I started growing up a little bit more and more. By the time I was 10, I was, a complete gang member. I was, watching people get shot at, people getting killed, people getting ran over. Chicago has always been a very violent city. A lot of people think that it just started being like that. And Chicago's been like that for a very long time. I always tell people, if you lived in Chicago, you probably have PTSD because you see a lot of violence, you see a lot of shootings, even if you live in the good areas, even if you live out in the suburbs, it still happens. And that was my life, man. Pretty much from the age of 9 to 16, it was either getting shot at or shooting at somebody, trying to run people over, there's not sugarcoat things. We were out there trying to kill people. People were trying to kill us. And it was a bunch of kids, broken kids. By the time I was 16, I got a job with a family in Mexico and what they call today the cartel. And, now I'm getting introduced to money. First it was violence. It was sex, violence, then money. So that combination right there were my first, I guess you could say, my first battles. And I became very good at them. I became very violent on the streets. I became very violent in Mexico. And then money came into the picture where I used to think that, that was the answer to pretty much everything, money. By the time I was 17, I ended up in prison in Mexico, and I got arrested by the military, the Mexican military, and I went to prison in Mexico. And over there, it's real prison. It's not like a 5-star hotel like over here, I was there for less than 5 minutes, and I had already gotten stabbed. I'm 17 years old now, and I thought that I had seen all the violence I could see. Little did I know I was wrong, because I was about to see a whole different violence inside a Mexican prison now. And once, I was there for 4 years. I saw people getting lynched. I seen, child molesters coming in and just getting pretty much ate alive. they would release them and the inmates would pretty much destroy them. And just seeing more and more stuff, I didn't realize how much damage it was doing to me until I got older. The American Council came and got me 4 years later. And by then I was already a mess. I was already addicted to crack cocaine. I was a full-blown alcoholic. Any kind of drug I could get my hands on, I would do it. Any girl I could sleep with, I would sleep with. I was a mess. Ended up getting transferred into the United States federal prison. And when I got there, I was one of the youngest inmates. I was 19 years old, going on 20. And, I got to see bigger guys, big shots there. I got to see mafia guys. I got to see real cartel people, And I say that because in the mid 90s, the federal prison was very different to what it is today. Today they have a lot of local gang members in there. It's a very different inmates. So I pretty much went into prison with GED and, came out with a bachelor's or master's, you could say, in criminal, justice. And I met some really big people while I was there. And when I came home after being gone for some time, it was right back to work. It was right back to selling drugs. It was right back to doing what I knew how to do best. And it was almost like it turned into a revolving door, man. For 17 years, I was just in and out of prison, in and out of prison, in and out of prison. I would last maybe about 6 months, and then I would go back. Either it was for a year or 6 months or 2 years, but I was constantly going back and back to the point where it felt comfortable. It felt like home. It felt natural to me. And I'm the type the guy I always tell people, like, I know how to do time. Like I already knew what to do as soon as I got to the yard. I already knew what table to sit at. I knew how to do time. So that made it a little bit worse for me because it made me feel comfortable in there. So when I came home in 2014, I was really trying to stay out. I came home, I was like, I'm going to open up my own gym and I'm going to really get to work and just be like a trainer. And I did it. I opened up my own gym a year later. I did everything I said I was going to do, but that pain in my heart, that emptiness that I was trying to fill was still there. So, I was still using drugs. I was still sleeping around. I was still kind of chasing that high, I guess, of being like a gangster. And I ended up going back. They ended up sending me back in 2016, and they sent me back for a year. I came home in 2017, and I was like, okay, this time I'm going to get my life together because I'm already almost 50, and like I don't want to die in prison. And my daughter had told me to Google, like tips on how to change and stuff like that. And I Googled it, and it told me to take college courses. So I signed up for college and it was my very first class. And the professor, he's been a cop for 30 years. And, he's my best friend now today. But back then, I couldn't even stand looking at him because he was a cop. I don't know why I didn't like him, never had met him, but it was something that was embedded into my culture to hate cops. And it was so funny because I got there early and I tried to scare him a little bit. So he wouldn't pick me. And he didn't scare too easy. He worked one of the toughest neighborhoods here in Phoenix. So, he was a tough guy. Finished the class and he handed me a book, a Bible book. And he told me, to read it, that if he would like to be my friend. And for 4 years, that guy like checked up on me regularly all the time. He would call me to see how I was doing. And I was like, man, this guy is for real. He's like the real deal, like a true Christian. I'm gonna give him a chance. So I started talking to him and just getting to know him to see if he was, truly what he said he was. And sure enough, man, really good guy, everything. 2 years passed, and I think that I'm on top of the world. Like I'm making money coaching. I got myself a car. Like I think I'm on top of the world. But every time I come home, I have to take that mask off that I've been wearing during the day. And when I get home, I'm depressed. I'm alone. There's an emptiness in my heart that I don't know how to explain. And, no amount of women that I was having, because I was sleeping around a lot. Like a lot of girls were coming by my house and stuff like that. So I really wasn't alone, but I felt alone. My wife walked into the gym in 2019 and she totally caught my eye because she's like the type of girl that I look at. She's blonde, she's into fitness, tall. So, I started befriending her. She becomes my friend. And something odd that I noticed in our relationship is that I wasn't lusting over her. I actually considered her a friend. And it helped me so much to be able to talk to her and tell her, things that I had really never shared with nobody, things that happened to me as a kid. And we became really good friends, for 6 months. She was like my wingman. And one night I came home and I was really depressed, man. I've been diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, a lot of things just because of everything that happened to me as my childhood was really traumatic. It was really bad. So I come home that night and I said to myself, you know what? I don't want to go back to prison no more, but I'm not happy. This emptiness that I feel in my heart, like I'm just not. So I decided I was going to kill myself. And I went in and I got a hot shot. For those that don't know what a hot shot is, it's just a lot of heroin. So you could pretty much just overdose. And I was going to do it. I was like, man, that's it. I'm good. If this is what life is, I want no part of it because I was actually happier in prison than I am out here. And for some reason, I had to say goodbye. I had to say goodbye to Bethany, my wife. I had to say goodbye to her. I don't know why. I mean, I know why now, but I had to say bye. So I text her, and it was late at night. I didn't really think she was going to answer. And she answered right away. And, I started talking to her, and she knew something was wrong with me. So she started asking me a bunch of questions. And she just kept talking to me. Little did I know she was just trying to keep me on the phone. And it ended up getting really late that night and I fell asleep and I didn't do it. I got up and I was like, I guess you could say over it again. And little did I know that my wife's stepfather committed suicide and he called her also.
Jesus.
But this is before I even knew more of her story, So I get to the gym in the morning and she runs up to me and gives me a hug. And man, I tell everybody when I tell the story, I had never felt nothing like that in my whole life. I had never felt somebody hug me like in a genuine way. And it made me so mad. I wanted to punch her. Like it made me so uncomfortable that I ran into the bathroom. We started talking more after that. And one day I woke up and I was like, I think I love you. I think this is what you're supposed to feel when you care about somebody. Because this is how lost I was, bro. I didn't know what love was. I didn't even know what a pat in the back was, really, to tell you the truth. And my whole life, I got hit, tortured. So like it was all new to me. And she came over to my house one day and she seen in the little apartment I was living. I really couldn't get anything in my name, even though I was making really good money. I couldn't move into a nice place because of my background.
Right.
My background looks really bad on paper. And no nice place wants to rent to me. So yeah. I have to live in the ghetto pretty much, even though I'm making good money. She looks at my place and she's like, no, you're not going to live here. She's like, no. So she moves me into her house, and little does she know what she was getting herself into, because now that's another JC at the house. That's a whole different JC. That's the third mask that comes off. And she got to see my schizophrenia. I would sleep maybe 2 hours and I would be up checking the doors. I would be checking underneath the bottom of the door. I felt like somebody was coming. Constantly hearing noises, voices, shadows moving around. I mean, it would take a toll on me, bro, because I would go days without sleeping sometimes. And my mood would change. I was very, very aggressive, very violent. She had never seen a guy punch through a wall and come out on the other side of the like she had never seen a guy rip off, a big marble counter off the whole thing and just break it on his head. I was highly, highly damaged, really damaged. And she didn't know how bad I was. She didn't. And, I put it through hell, man. I put it through hell, and I made her cry a lot. But one thing that I tell everybody is, like, she never told me to leave like everybody else did. She never left like everybody else did. And she just stuck it out. She seen something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. And she prayed because she was already a Christian. She was already a Christian, and she was already a follower, and she didn't push it on me. She just would tell me about it. But it was getting to the point that I was putting her through crap for 2 years. 2 years, to the point where she ended up in a mental institute. Like, she couldn't take no more of me no more. And I got really scared, man. I got really scared because for the first time in my life, I had somebody that actually cared about me, that loved me. And she loved me like the little kid. Like, I'm a big child trapped in this grown man's body. I act totally different at home than how I act at the gym. It's a complete opposite person. And I got on my knees, man, for the first time in my life. I got on my knees and I looked up and I was just like, you got my attention. Like, I don't want to lose her. I don't want to feel this way no more. I don't want to be angry. Like, I want you. And I can't explain what happened that day. I really can't. And I don't want to. But I couldn't stop crying. And I couldn't even look up. I put my face down to the floor. I couldn't even look up because I felt so embarrassed, so ashamed. And I just started confessing everything that I had done bad in my life, the people that I had hurt, the people that I disliked. It just started coming out, flowing out. And man, when I got up, I'm not going to lie, I felt like a new person. I felt like all those weights from those 40 years I had been carrying around just like got lifted off of me. And I was like, wow. I even said to myself that day, I was like, man, I think this Jesus thing is real. I was like, I think it's real. And I went into the garage to work out and I fell to my knees again. And it was so crazy because in my heart, I felt it that he was telling me, you know, because I had used my YouTube to talk about all my cartel stuff. I had used my YouTube to talk about all my violence, my life, you know, the drugs, the women, all that stuff, you know, rappers. And I had made money, a good amount of money from my YouTube. But right there in that moment, I just felt it in my heart that he told me that I wasn't going to talk about my past no more, that I was going to talk about what he was doing in my life today and now. And I was like, man, are you sure? Because I just started making like $4,000 a month. Like, if I switch it up now, I'm not going to make no money no more. And I don't know, man, something in my heart just told me to do it. And I did it. And yeah, you know, my money went I only make about $200 now a month on YouTube, but those videos are reaching the people that they need to reach. And ever since then, man, everything started to change. It's so funny. You know, me and my wife always crack up about it because I tried to be famous for so long. Like, it was all personal pride. Like, my story, you know, DMX, the rapper, is my daughter's godfather. I know this person. I know that person. I know Fat Joe. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get famous. It's all about me. I'm strong. And nothing was working out. Nothing was working out. As soon as I gave my life to God, all the phone calls started coming in from all the TV shows. Like, it was so funny because I call him a show off, you know, because like in 1 second, he made everything happen. I got on the National Geographic channel. I got on this TV show called America's Most Evil Gangsters. I was getting called about acting jobs. And I was like, not bad for a kid that don't know how to read and write, man. Like, you know, like, but it's all been because of him. You know, it's all been me putting him first now and letting him kind of lead the way because I'm a mess when I try to, you know, drive my own life. And I'm a mess when I try to do my own thing. And here I am 2 years later, you know, into my walk. I'm still a baby, but I'm so hungry to learn. I get up every day. I read. I'm like a little kid when it comes to like the Bible. I watch cartoons on it. I don't stop learning because I just got this book. It's all pictures. You know, I don't know how to read and write that good. So like pictures do it for me. You know, cartoons do it for me. So like, that's like a little kid that I have in me, you know, and my life it's been a blessing, man, ever since I changed my life and I started walking with him. But I tell people, don't get it twisted. Like, my problems are still there. It's just that I know how to deal with them better now. And there's a joy in my heart that I feel every day now that I didn't have before. And I love my walk, man.
JC, as a dad, I have a guy, and my son's turning 3 on Friday, and just thinking about all the torture and the pain that you went through, it breaks my heart, brother. And it's so nice to see you smiling because you really have gone through hell, you know, in your youth. And can I ask you, as someone that's been in that, when you were a kid in Chicago and you're around all those other kids, and there was just so much violence and pain. What do you think is the answer to all the crime in these inner cities? Because it's not so much. I just think it always comes down to the fact that it's not really the fault of any kid to grow up in an environment that, like you said, for example, where you don't have a loving set of parents and you're literally just fighting for everything from such a young age. It's almost impossible in those situations to come out of it and not have the kind of background that you have, right? The pull of crime and violence is just so strong, and you don't have a figure like you met later, that the policeman who was the teacher. If you met someone like that, maybe it could have saved you, but you weren't even around that. So do you have any answer to that? Like, what is the solution to the violence and the people that there's so many kids that grow up without father figures or male role models?
Honestly, it would have to be like a couple of key ingredients. Well, number one, being God, the first one. And second, letting people like us that have survived it go back to teach these kids. Because if I could teach a kid the something, the main thing that you need to teach a kid is how to handle his emotions, how to discipline his emotions. Because as kids, that's the number one thing that we fight with the most, our emotions. Yes. Whether we're in a good home or a bad home, it doesn't matter. Emotions are the big role that play in a kid's life, and me being so emotional, detached of myself as a kid made me violent, and going to the streets made it even worse. It fed that monster. But a lot of these kids, nowadays, a lot of these kids, it's different now. A lot of these kids are watching. I was telling my wife, there's a show on Netflix right now. It's called How to Become a Gangster. And they show you how to do it on the show.
Jesus.
And I'm like, who's putting out this stuff? Like, who's teaching these kids that it's cool to be a gangster? Like, who's teaching these kids that it's cool to beat up people? Like, and social media has a big role in this. Instagram, all these things that they see on daily basis. They asked me the other day, what advice can I give to a kid in today's time? And I was like, man, that's a hard one, because I didn't grow up with a smartphone. So I don't know what it is to grow up with all this information hitting me 100 miles an hour in front of me. All I had to worry was about not getting killed by another gang member. Yeah. I actually had it pretty easy. So these kids right now, nowadays, these kids need strong men in their life that are godly, disciplined, and could actually walk the walk. Not tell them, hey, don't smoke, don't drink, don't do this, but they're doing it. Yeah. Because that's how we grew up. That's how our parents told us. Don't do it, but then we started doing it. So I think that right now is a big time for a lot of men to step up and become real men. Yeah. And by that, I mean being men of God, men of morals. I was the biggest playboy out there, man. I used to think that the more women I had, the less gay I was because of what happened to me as a kid. I had my moments where I was confused. I didn't know if it was this way, that way, but it was because of what happened to me as a kid. Sex was the first language introduced to me. So I was like a dog on the streets, just trying to hump everything that moved. And today, I thank my wife so much, because I would have never imagined what it would have been to been like a man today, that I have morals and I don't sleep around. Like I don't even know how to say it. Like, I see a girl and I don't even look twice. It's not the old me no more. And it feels so good to be able to respect myself as a man. I think in society we're taught to tell women, respect your body because you're a woman. But like, we high five a man if he sleeps around or if he has two girlfriends. And that's so wrong. It's so wrong, because a man should learn to love himself too, love his body, respect it. And that's what people don't understand nowadays, man. That's why, they look at the 10 Commandments and they see all these rules, but they're not rules. They're actually there to protect you. Because if you have sex without marriage, guess what? You get STDs. If you kill somebody, guess what? You go to prison. If you steal, so all those rules are there for a reason. They like to look at it a different way.
Right. No, I mean, those rules, for me, it's like kids, young men, they need structure and they need guidelines. And I feel like one of the problems with today is there isn't too much. Like you said, you can pull up a Netflix show and it's how to teach you how to be a gangster, as opposed to, following the right rules. Like the 10 Commandments is a very good way to move through life. Can I ask you, JC, you said something really interesting. You said you were more at home in prison than out of prison. And was that because of the structure, or was it because you had so many connections there, or what was it about prison that made you feel at home? Because I feel like that's a kind of a common thing with people that get released, is it's almost like the drive to recommit and go back to jail is almost the easier option for them, and because they're so comfy in that environment.
It's a combination of everything. I always tell people, if I wouldn't have went to prison, I would have ended up dead. And prison taught me a lot of things. Prison taught me how to make my bed. Prison taught me, time management. Prison taught me a lot of things. The structure alone in prison is what made it home for me, because I was in a structured environment and I liked it. I'm a creature of habit. I like getting up at the same time. I get up at 2:45 in the morning every day. I go to bed at 7 p.m. every day. I mostly eat the same thing every day. I train every day. So like that structure in prison really did something for me. It helped me, I guess you could say, blossom in there, because I was always somebody popular in prison. Everybody knew who I was in prison all the time. Not for the wrong reasons. I was just really respected because I was always either working out. I was always doing something productive.
Right. And they respected the fact you were working on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said something else, JC, about you said that child molesters would be basically I hear that the other inmates, it's easy for someone like me, to look at, say, everyone in jail is bad. But when I hear that, I feel like there's a huge difference for me between someone that's molesting children and that someone that's stealing to literally survive. That the stealing to survive is much more understandable. Whereas for me as a parent, the abhorrence of child molesters is just so disgusting. So you were saying that it was the same in prison. The inmates just, that they didn't want to be around a child molester.
Well, in Mexico, as soon as they would put them in, they would almost kill them. Some of them, did get killed.
Right.
But, in the United States, they separate them and they put them in other prisons. So it's very different, United States to Mexico. Mexico was the worst, where I got to just see them, do their justice. And I'm not going to lie, bro, when I first started my walk with Jesus, I was like, well, every other sin is good. I could deal with, but that one I can't. And man, I felt so guilty for saying that, because all in the eyes of God, all sin is bad. No sin is better than the other. All sins are bad. And I felt it in my heart. I was like, wow, like I really need to talk to pedophiles, because I need to tell them my story so maybe it could impact them. But in a million years, I would have never even thought that if I wouldn't have been on this walk that I'm on.
Yes.
Because I do forgive him for doing that to me. And I really hope that one day he could get help. I really hope that people like that get help. Anybody could change. If I could change, anybody could change. And I tell people, me being a drug dealer, a murderer, all these things don't make me better. But that's the thing, is that those are the kind of people that God uses to show how great his mercy is, and how he could transform people and make them into like new.
JC, I think that's the most beautiful thing. If I can do it, anyone else can. Like, you are a living example of someone that turned their life around. And so many people, whatever it is in their life, if they're really unhappy with where they're at, it's just, I find that such an inspiring message. And the fact that you came so close to suicide, I had a friend and I wasn't super close to him. He was a very close friend to one of my close friends in California. And he recently took his life a few weeks ago. And it was such a shock because we had a phone call about a week before, and it was a long conversation. He was telling me all his problems, and it was a very rational person going through all the problems. It wasn't someone who wasn't thinking clearly. He was very calculated, and I didn't even think he would do that. And then a few days later, I thought, I hope he doesn't think that, life's not going to be worth living because of these problems. And then I found out that the horrible news, and it was so beautiful that you came so close. But obviously, it's your wife saved you, and it's so hard for people when they're in that mindset where they want to take their life. It's hard for them to see that there is life around the corner. But again, you're the perfect example, because back then you had that emptiness. You just couldn't imagine happiness. And you obviously are living a great life now. You have so much happiness. You're smiling. So that's another really refreshing message. It doesn't matter how low you are. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to keep going, one day at a time.
I can't imagine not being as happy as I am now. And it makes me almost mad to think that I went my whole life just being mad. I was mad, more madder and madder. And I told my wife, it was such a hard job to be mad all day, to be tough, and to want to beat up people. It was stressful and drained me every day. And now it's so funny because I'll bump into guys and they'll think that I want an altercation with them, and they'll be like, "What?" And I'll be like, "What's up? Bring it in." And they're like, "What? Wait." But I feel that that's why God is using me, because my rough exterior, they judge a book by its cover, and that's the type of world we live in. But they judge me. But then when they get to know me, they're like, "Man, how can I?" The question I get a lot is, "How can I be as happy as you?" And I always tell them, "Man, you gotta put God first in your life, man. You put God first in your life. There's sky's the limit. Sky's the limit."
Well, being happy, so many people chase the wrong goals, whether it's the promotion at work for a job they hate, whether it's they think that money's going to cure all their problems, and they get the goals they're chasing, but they end up being incredibly unhappy. But the best judge of, are you living life well, is, are you happy or not? So that's amazing that you just have that happiness, and it's overflowing out of you. I can see you smiling, you're happy.
I tell people that I bought some of my time back, because as a coach, I started getting better at my job. So I started charging more, and I started getting more popular. So I started working more, but I started working less, if that makes any sense. But my day is completely done by 10 o'clock in the morning. And I just come home and spend it with my wife. I'll lay in bed, I'll watch TV. A lot of people think that I come home and I get to work and I'm trying to make all these millions. And I'm like, nope. I had $1 million in my closet. It didn't make me happy. I'm not rich now. I live well, but I come home and relax because I didn't have a home as a kid. So now I get to come home, I relax, I get to spend time with my wife. So to me, that's success. To me, that's success, because I come home and I'm happy.
Yeah. But that's beautiful. But it almost, you can say that because, like you said, you had $1 million in your closet and it didn't bring you happiness. A lot of people that have never had the things they're striving for think in their head, if I can just get this, I'll be happy. But that's not true. So hopefully people listening to this will know not to chase the wrong goals.
Lies. That's all it is, lies.
JC, how did you overcome your addiction to alcohol? Because you were drinking a lot for a long time, right? And that's such a hard one to overcome, because physically, if you just cut it cold turkey, you can die. You become so reliant on it. how was that just overcoming that addiction?
Once I got on my knees, a lot of the things that I thought were gonna be, I had struggles in my life that I thought were gonna, like, I thought that porn and women were at the top of the list, and they weren't. I thought alcohol was at the top of the list. It wasn't. I thought anger was at the top of the list, and it wasn't. The biggest problem that I had was stop smoking weed, because I was so used to it. It was such a habit to me. It was what calmed me down. It was what I had been doing it since I was 9 years old. So like when everything changed and I stopped doing everything, that was like the one thing that I struggled with. But the more I prayed and the more I trusted in God, the more it got better and the easier it got. And I tell people, this is not a sprint. This is a long walk through your life. And God knows you're not perfect. God knows that you have flaws, but as long as we put him first and we keep remembering that, it gets easy and it's doable. So, I tell people the best version of you is the version that knows how to be disciplined in all areas of your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That book by Jocko, there's a book, I think it said Discipline Equals Freedom. It's so true. So when you were in prison, is that where you got the discipline to have the daily workouts and improve yourself? Was that, like, where did that come from? When you were young, did you just have all this energy and you're stuck in a small physical space, so you just have to exercise? Or where did that initial discipline come from for your working out?
I've been working out since I was 9 years old. My dad it's the only thing my dad taught me. My dad used to like to go into the gyms to pick up girls. So he would always bring me along, and I always read all the magazines, protein powders. I became a bodybuilder at a very young age. I started lifting weights. I started, exercising, and it just was natural to me. And then when I started going to prison, it was good for my mental health because of all my problems and me having so much energy and everything. So I would work out like an animal in there. I would work out 3-4 times a day. So it's just been a big part of me since I've been young.
Don't you think if someone comes to you and they don't have exercise as a habit and they were asking you for advice, it will be the first thing that I would say to anybody. It doesn't matter what their problems are, doesn't matter what other things they have in their life. If they're not exercising daily or almost daily, I just think it's the best advice to give to people, because life has become so sedentary, so easy. And so many people, when you don't have that physical release, all the problems tend to go to your head. So I think that's such a good habit. And I feel like in many ways that probably got you through the craziness of your life, just having that habit of just always exercising hard.
I always tell people, you need to exercise, you need some sun, you need to drink some water, you need to eat healthy, and all those will help you, with depression, anxiety, all these things, because I know it. I'm the number one person poster child for every kind of medication you could think of. And you know what? The gym has been my number one doctor, for real.
I love that. Yeah. So many people, they go to the doctor and they just get a whole bunch of pills to mask the symptoms. And their real problem, like you said, is just exercise, some kind of physical outlet. So I love spreading that message. I've heard you talk, JC, about the need for solitude. And when you were in different, I mean, you were in and out of prison a lot, but was there a lot of downtime where you were just by yourself in there?
Yeah. And I spent a year in solitary confinement. So that year really changed my life, really made me look at aspects of my life, made me look at just life in general, different. I got to see firsthand what solitude does to a person that doesn't know how to be alone. They go crazy in there. They bang their heads on the walls. They do whatever they can to get out. And I believe that every man should learn to spend time like that. because it's a very powerful tool. I actually have a challenge that I give my clients. They have to pick the smallest bathroom in their house, and they have to spend the next 24 hours in there with their food, their water, whatever books they're going to read, their pillows and sheets in the bathtub. And they have to spend 24 hours in there with no phone, no nothing, no human contact, nothing. 24 hours. That's the challenge.
And is that just for them to really just, I guess, go inward, go deep in their mind without all these external distractions? Or what is the goal of that?
I always tell people like this: if your life is so busy with your phone, with work, with problems, everything, you never have time to actually listen to your demons. So when you shut everything down and everything is closed, the store is closed, the shoes are closed, everything's closed, and it's just you by yourself, then that's where it gets real. That's where it gets real. And it can't just be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, because it takes a lot longer to be alone to really get in there and really start to think.
And is it a case of if you don't let your demons come out, you can never overcome them? Is that the ultimate goal?
Well, the thing is, like I always tell people, you have to get along with your demons, because your demons are never going nowhere. You know, those are yours. Those are yours to deal with. That's your craziness. Those are your gifts. Those are your flaws. That's your personality. That's you. So you have to be able to know. I tell people the biggest thing of this exercise is that you need to know your weakness and your strength. Once you know that, then we have something to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said something, JC, about, you said how happy you are now, but you said it's not that your demons have gone. You just know how to deal with them. Is that right? Too many people like it.
Yep.
Yeah. So too many people think they can just get rid of them. But I mean, given the childhood you had, it's so deep in there, you have to just manage it as opposed to always. It'll be great if we could just overcome all our demons, but that's not really too realistic.
No, it's just how they say, once you're an addict, you're always going to be an addict. It's the same concept. People don't realize that all this stuff, all these sayings, all these programs, they've been working for a long time because they've been there for a long time. So like the Bible, there's stuff there that works for a reason. We make things more complicated than what they are, man.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like the writings of people like Plato and Aristotle was 2,500 years ago. The Bible is 2,000 years old. That these things that have stood the test of time, that means there's something there. Because if there wasn't something there, people are not talking about it in 200 years, right?
Exactly. I read a Psalms every day. I read a Proverbs every day, depending on the day. And every time I read it, it tells me something different to my heart. And it's the same Proverbs, it's the same, Psalms, but it's a different meaning that day. And I believe that that's why it's called the living word. And I believe, and it's crazy because I'll read it and I'll be like, man, this makes so much sense, even back then, even now. So that has to tell you something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's timeless wisdom, right? So it doesn't apply to just the times then. It actually applies to 2023, which is pretty wild.
Yep.
JC, you've got I really love your philosophy on exercise. You really believe in simplicity, and I kind of do too. Can you talk a little bit about some of your philosophies because right now I feel like we have overabundance of information. There's so many different people claiming to be coaches with all these wacky regimes and ideas. And I'm a big believer in kind of back to the timeless wisdom, the simplicity of training that's been around a long time. There's a reason it's been around a long time. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you'd recommend for someone looking to maximize their training. What kind of regimes, what kind of exercises?
I'm really old school. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. Very, very old school, from you could say I'm a bodybuilder from like the 70s and 80s, where it was very, very little knowledge, on food, but it was compound movements, deadlifts, bench press, squat, body weight. My whole philosophy on training is you need to master your own body weight first before you can even graduate into the weights. Because a lot of people nowadays have a lot of muscle imbalances because they watch too many videos. They're always doing chest. They're never doing back. And it falls into this whole concept is, are you really fit? Because yeah, you could bench 300 pounds, but you can't do one pull-up. So there's something wrong right there. You know, yeah, you could squat 500 pounds, but you can't even sprint to the corner.
Yeah.
You know, without hurting your back or something. And to me, true fitness is functional. True fitness is balance. True fitness is just pretty black and white, man. Pretty basic. I tell people all the time, I can get somebody into the best shape of their life with 3 exercises: squat, bench press, and deadlift. Those 3 exercises, I'll get somebody into the best shape of their life with a 6-pack and everything.
Right.
You know, it's just that today, nowadays, there's too much information out there. There's too many videos. There's too many experts, and people are feeding into these things. And you know, who does deadlifts behind them? I mean, come on, man. Like, so it's just, you know, I always tell all my clients when they hire me, don't ever ask me a question because you've seen something on YouTube or because one of your friend trainers told you about it. Because as soon as you do that, I'm going to give you your money back and you could go train with him. Because if you don't trust me as your coach, then we don't need to be working together.
Right.
So, you know, I do well, man, but it's because I love what I do, man. And I'm very articulate when it comes to, I watch my clients' toes when they're squatting. I watch their knees, their hips, how are they moving? Because everybody's different. You know, just like your diet's not going to fit my diet, everybody's different, even with working out. With working out is everybody's femur is a different size. So not everybody's going to squat the same way. Not everybody's going to squat with their legs straight. Not everybody's going to squat with their legs out. So those are the small things that you look at as a coach to be a good coach. And remember, I always tell people, your main job is to keep these people healthy and safe. Those are your 2 main jobs.
Right. Exactly. I think that the fear for a lot of people, like I'm in my 40s now, and it's the heavy weights like the squats and the deadlifts, you tend to worry about injury. But I've been doing 5 sets of 5 for deadlifts the last maybe 3 or 4 months. And it's been incredible. Like I train and teach jiu-jitsu and I was having all these low back issues. Since I've been doing that the last 4 months, my low back feels so much stronger. I'm really trying to focus on my form. It's been incredible. Can I ask you, I love that, and squats and bench press obviously are fundamental key movements, but there's something about deadlifts that I just absolutely love. I always do it with a straight bar. Do you prefer the straight bar or is it the hexagon bar where you're kind of inside it?
I train with both. I actually hold the state record in Arizona for deadlifting.
Whoa, that's incredible. Wow. 585.
Wow.
Okay. And so, as long as you're careful with your form, it's not at a risk for back injuries, right? It's just, it's when you let the form go and you kind of arch your back forward, that's the problem.
Yeah. You know, with the hatch bar, it's less injury. You don't have to worry about your form that much because you're really it's brute force that you're trying to train with that bar. When you're using the straight bar, you have to be more efficient, more form, more on everything. And always wear a belt. Always learn how to breathe, how to maximize your core as a belt itself. And deadlifting is one of my favorite, I want to say, workouts next to legs. I love training legs too.
What do you like for people for cardio? Is it just running, or like what do you recommend for them for getting their cardio?
Navy SEALs, burpees,
Gotcha.
style.
Gotcha.
I make all my clients do 100 of them after every workout.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're always getting the strength training and the cardio and endurance after.
Yeah.
I love that. Lastly, JC, I want to ask you, I know you're doing a initiative for female prisons. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I love like you said, you need people like you because your message resonates so much more given what you've overcome. So it's so great that you're going back and you're trying to help people. But what is the initiative for the female prisons?
Well, I'm going in to teach them how to become personal trainers. So when they get home, I can help them find clients or find gyms to work at just because of my platform, my network. But most of all, I'm teaching them what God has done in my life just by being there and them watching me. But that's the goal. That's the main goal. The second one is for them to be successful when they come home, really showing them what it's going to take to stay out and come home and get a job and pretty much just go through all the red tape that I went through.
Yeah.
So it's more like being a mentor, you could say, like a big brother. My wife helps me do those classes. So yeah, man, I'm really excited. Actually, we'll be there tomorrow. We'll be there tomorrow for 4 hours.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there a problem with the prison system where people aren't getting transferable skills? So when they get out, it's very hard for them to readjust to society. Is that one of the problems? Or is it getting better now?
I tell people all the time, you learn skills in prison, but the thing is that we come home without life experiences. Yeah, we come home thinking that we're smart. We're reading books on philosophy and all these stuff, but we have no life skills. So we come home and let's just say our first heartbreak, we're back to drinking again. They fire us from the job because they found out our background. We're back to doing drugs again. We have no life experiences. So we're almost like fragile little kids when we come home from prison, and the return rate is 82%.
Wow.
Between a month to 6 months, 82% go back. So in my eyes, the system is really letting us down. It really is, because they're not helping us reintegrate into society the right way. Another thing is that we come home very violent, thinking that violence is the way to solve things because in there, that's how you survive. And I wish they could do like a year in a different facility to get people ready to come home where there's no violence, there's no routine, no counts, like almost to like desensitize you to the prison. Like I think that would help a lot if they did something like that.
Yeah, that's so true, because you have the PTSD and the violence to survive, and then you're expected just to suddenly adapt to regular life.
Go get a job. They're like, hey, get out now, go get a job and be a normal citizen after you finish stabbing 20 people in the 7 years that you did. It doesn't even make sense.
That's true. And if it was 20%, you'd be like, oh, maybe it's that 20%. But if it's over 80%, within 6 months, that's obviously the system is not working. Man, it's tough. It really is tough. There's so many problems right now with, so many youth without role models. And America has, by far I think it is the highest rate of incarceration rate among all the 200 and something countries. So I'm really glad we met, and I really appreciate you sharing a bit of your story and just like you said, and same with kids. It's not what we tell our kids, it's what they see us doing. And it's the same with you, where it's one thing someone saying something that hasn't actually walked the walk, but you're a perfect example of someone that overcame one of the toughest life stories ever. And you're smiling, you're helping people, you're giving back. It really is. I find it so inspiring, JC. And every time I do deadlifts, man, I'm going to think about you and put a little extra weight on the bar, because I'm fired up, brother. I really am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you.